What is going on, guys? DragonTamerBlayde here, back with some more Elder Scrolls Legends, and today I've made two videos before this, if you guys want to check them out first. They were a little bit more lengthy, talking about Drain Vitality and Shouts in general, and Haunted Manor / Halalu in general. And I figured, since we talked about those two types of decks, but more so those specific cards that are being viewed as problematic in the community, why not take a kind of a quick second and take a look at... I put together... Technically, I'm saying 5 cards that could be changed, but we're going to talk about 6 cards today. But 5 cards that could be nerfed or adjusted in the post-client relaunch balance patch, if there is one. I'm not saying for sure that all of these cards are going to get nerfed or that all of these cards need to get nerfed. This is more of a theoretical, I could see these cards being adjusted. So, let's say hypothetically they are being adjusted. This is what I would consider changing them to. So that's just my kind of thought process on it. I'd be glad to hear your guys' suggestions down below in the comments section of if you guys think my adjustments are correct, if they're too heavy-handed, not heavy enough. Let me know what you guys would do down below in the comments section. And also, since I don't always want to just focus on nerfs, as a follow-up to this video, at some point this week, I'm going to make a 5 cards that should be buffed in that same balance patch, just to kind of, giveth and taketh away. So without further ado, let's get on into the first card we're going to talk about. So the first card I want to talk about is Telvos Magister. Excellent card. It's an amazing card. 6 cost 5/4 with ward. At the end of your turn, your face gains a ward. So this is an amazing card. I think we've seen it in a lot of mid-rangey blue decks. Even some slightly more aggressive decks are using it to kind of outdo fellow aggressive decks, but it's more in like the mid-rangey strategy. It gives you a way to protect your face, which is something brand new we never had before. Incredibly powerful card, though. Not only is a 5/4 with ward pretty decent for 6, but at the end of every single one of your turns, gaining a ward is pretty awesome. But sometimes it could err on the side of too awesome. I don't know what the win rates of those decks are, just because we're so overshadowed by Scout and Halalu. But I could see this card becoming a problematic card after those, or if those 2 cards are changed. So I kind of had 2 thoughts on this card. One of them I've seen pretty commonly on Reddit and Twitter, and the other one is kind of a variation of that one. So what I could see, and this is the Reddit suggestion, which I kind of agree with, is at the end of your turn, if Telvos Magister has ward, you gain a ward. It's a little bit more simple. It's a little bit heavier of a nerf than my other suggestion that we'll get into in a second. But it's a, it makes it so that if you want to use like a Firebolt or something breaking the ward of this card, then you no longer have to worry about the face ward anymore. Because usually part of the problem of Telvos Magister is, unless you have something hard removal, like a Javelin or Cast into Time or something, it's so hard to get rid of that in the meantime, you can't race your opponent because they're going to be getting a face ward every single turn. And meanwhile, Telvos Magister is strong enough that he usually is 2-for-1-ing, if not better, by himself. So by the time you get past 1 Telvos Magister, forget if they have a second one, but by the time they get past 1, like, you've already expended most of your resources and you're kind of losing unless you have your own. But another suggestion that I would make, in addition to that Reddit suggestion, instead of at the end of your turn Telvos Magister needing to have ward, I would say something like, at the end of your turn, if you control a creature with ward, you gain a ward. That would make it a little bit less nerfed than making only this 1 copy of Telvos Magister require a ward. It would also push into some more ward sorcerer synergies that we've seen before, and it's not like there's any shortage of ward cards. We've got lesser ward that sees occasional play in Giant's Battle Mage. We've got Wardcrafter, which sees play in a whole host of deck. We've got Daggerfall Mage, which sees play in tons of decks. Hiking Emmerich. So, like I'm saying, there's tons of ward cards. I don't think this would be as heavy as a nerf, but it'd be a slight adjustment to the card that would make racing a deck using Telvos Magister a little bit more feasible. So let me know what you guys think about that down below, and we'll get on to card number 4. So the next card we're going to talk about is Haunted Manor. And these cards aren't in particular order, they're just 5 cards. But Haunted Manor is one of the most powerful engines behind the Halalu deck that we all know and love or hate, depending on your side of the fence. But Haunted Manor just allows for incredible synergy plays. Halalu is drawing a ton of cards anyway, so they almost always have 2 creatures to play, and that +2/+2 buff puts everything out of range of Ice Storm, Drain Vitality. It just makes things crazy. So again, there's a Reddit suggestion, and we'll talk about all of those. But the main suggestion that I've seen going around is change this from +2/+2 to +2/+0, or occasionally I've seen +2/+1. +2/+0 would make this a slightly better Northwind Outpost. Northwind Outpost costs 3, but gives +1 attack to all red creatures. Haunted Manor costs 3 as well, and would give +2 attack to any second creature. So it actually would put them on kind of a comparable power level. So I don't know if I really like that change a ton. I know I've talked about it before, and it's an okay change. It would make it still pretty aggressive. Maybe even change it to +3/+0. That could potentially be equally insane. I'm not really sure. But if it's not a stat adjustment that is made to the card, I would say either give the 3rd creature you summon, which would be a little bit difficult. That may be too hard to trigger consistently, but it would make your opponent go kind of more all in on their aggressive strategy. Or if not the 3rd creature, then maybe just a cost increase to around 4 might do enough to slow down Halalu to being able to survive. The deck is going to be, honestly, with or without Haunted Manor, I think the deck is very powerful. I've talked about in a video in the past where I don't think any one card in Halalu can be looked at as broken. Besides, you can make an argument for this one. All the other cards are just really good cards that happen to come together super well. So there's a couple different options that could go for Haunted Manor. I wouldn't mind a cost increase, just making it more difficult to play, but still high power level when it is played. I don't know. I go a lot of different ways on this one, so I'm curious to see what you guys say. But let's get on into card number 3. So the next card we're going to talk about is another card that I've talked about before on the channel, and that is Talentsy Conscription. It's an 11 cost. Summon 1 creature from your deck that costs 2 or less all over the place, so you can summon up to 8 creatures if you're playing 8 different 2-drops and you have them all in your deck. I think this one's a tough adjustment. I don't know if this card necessarily needs an adjustment. It's just a really, really good card. I'm kind of on the side of this card's probably fine, but I know I've seen this card talked about a lot, so I wanted to give it a little bit of airtime. There's only 2, maybe 3 avenues I could see for adjusting this card. The first one would be an obvious increase the cost to 12. So make it a high cost card, and it would be more similar to summoning 6 2-cost cards, and you'd be getting 2 for free. Obviously still incredibly powerful. I don't know if it brings down the power level that much to make this a 12-cost card. The difference between 11 and 12 isn't that much. The other 2 changes that could be made, one of these I think completely kills the card, and the other one might also do it as well. I've seen people talk about summon creatures that cost 2 or less to 1 lane, so it would give you a maximum benefit of 8 magicka, but obviously you're essentially drawing 4 cards for 11 and playing them for free. So I don't think it makes the card horrendously worse. Obviously much worse if you're losing out on an entire second lane. But I think the card would still maybe see some play. I just think you'd be less likely to see it in aggressive strategies as a finisher. Or the other solution that you could look at instead of nerfing the lanes would be the cost. And you could say 1 of each creature that costs 1 or less. But I honestly think that would just flat out kill the card. There's a huge difference in this game between the quality of a 2-drop and the quality of a 1-drop for the most part. Besides something like Mudcrab Merchant or Moragtong Aspirant, we don't really have a ton of high-quality 1-drops, whereas our 2-drops, Skulk, Ward Crafter, Barrow Stalker, we have some amazingly strong 2-drops, so I think that kind of makes the card. I don't think you could change the cost of the creatures it summons without murdering the card. So I think either change it to 12-drop or limit it to 1 lane would be the adjustments that this card would see, if any. Like I said, I'm kind of leaning towards this card being balanced, but I wanted to give it an argument's sake anyway. But on to card number 2. So the next card I wanted to talk about is Ulfric's Uprising. And I think this is another one of those cards kind of similar in the vein of Tel'Vos Magister, where This card isn't being talked about as much, A, because there haven't been many decks discovered that really kind of take advantage of this card, and B, because it's kind of overshadowed so much by Haunted Manor, Hlaalu, and Shout Scout. But Ulfric's Uprising, I think, is a huge juggernaut that's really not being looked at as much. Triggering the summon effect of every friendly creature, regardless of their cost, is bonkers. It is incredibly strong. So much so that I think if this card was adjusted, its magic cost could be adjusted to 7 or even possibly 8 for how strong this card is. Being able to trigger your Maroks, your Manticores, your Odavings, all this stuff multiple times, obviously they need to be on the board, but even smaller things like Odonaran Necromancer or your ramp cards. There's so many cards that have between 4 and 6 or 7 Magicka costs that have amazing summon effects that this card can just kind of be insane. I mean, it's kind of a win more card where you need to have pretty strong board presence. But let's say I don't even know what kind of deck, but if I've got things like a board full of Ash Servants and I drop Ulfric's Uprising while you're trying to come back, I'm just nuking everything you play. And obviously there's the other combos that we've seen before with the Nixox combo, where I was kind of on record. Justin Larson actually had changed my mind about this. I was originally in the boat of Nixox being the problem, but then after talking to Justin or hearing Justin talk, I forget which it was, he actually turned my eyes to the fact that it's not so much Nixox as much as it's Ulfric's Uprising. So honestly, since then, I've kind of had my eyes on this card as something that could be adjusted. Again, I think there's probably only 2 lanes you can take this adjustment, increasing the Magicka cost to 7, possibly 8. I think 7's kind of a sweet spot, though. If not the Magicka adjustment, you could trigger the summon effect of all friendly creatures in a lane. Both of those are kind of similar nerfs. The lane nerf's probably a little bit harder, but I would like to see more cards caring about lanes, since it's kind of one of the things that makes our game unique. So seeing some of these cards, instead of just flat out having their Magicka adjusted, which is usually the quote-unquote easier nerf. I don't want to say easy, because no nerf is probably really easy to think about. But I would like to see things like lanes and stuff like that, or runes, be used more in the game. So if these cards are going to be adjusted, I would not be opposed to them caring about the lanes more so than the Magicka cost. But let's get on to the last card. This is actually a card pairing, so we're going to talk about them in a group, but let's get on into it. Alright, so you guys knew this card was going to be on the list. Drain Vitality. I've seen so many things suggested for this card, and I don't know which one the right answer is. So we're going to talk about this card, as well as we're going to talk about Word Wall. It's kind of counterpart. It's partner in crime. Drain Vitality, though, at level 3, gives everything -2/-2. So here's the thing. When that's leveled up, which it can be leveled up pretty easily, having a 1-cost better Ice Storm that you can play 3 times, potentially, is a little bit insane. And we're all seeing the effects of that. It's one of the few things I agree that's keeping Hlaalu almost in line. That's why I think they need to be nerfed together, if they're nerfed at all. I'm assuming there will be some adjustment. But Drain Vitality is a tough one, because at the same time, I think when you play 3 Drain Vitalities, so if I didn't have Word Wall, and I just played Drain Vitality, Drain Vitality, Drain Vitality, I think it's completely balanced. It is a worse Curse, a better Malefic Wreath, and then a, honestly, better Ice Storm, but you've earned it at that point. Shouts are supposed to be super strong at level 3. But if Drain Vitality is nerfed instead of Word Wall, I would like to see Drain Vitality either cost 2-ish, if not more, or only affect a lane. I've seen people suggest give everything -1/-1. But for that, you'd kind of have to change the whole structure of the shout. It'd have to be like give an enemy creature -1/-1, give a lane -1/-1, and then give all enemy creatures -1/-1. I don't know if they really want to change the behavior of the shout in that way, if they were to adjust it. So I would say either target just a lane at the final level. It could be some kind of gigantic adjustment of like go from -2/-2 to like -5/-5 for 1 cost. That would kind of kill the shout, though. So I would think either a Magicka increase to 2, maybe 3, probably 2. If not, just targeting a lane. But I think even more so than Drained Vitality, the card that we need to talk about is this bad boy right here. Word Wall. So Word Wall makes all of the shouts crazy. The only problem is a lot of the shouts are garbage. You're not seeing Fire Breath anywhere. But the fact that with Word Wall, and occasionally with Parthenax, his best friend, you can play 3 level 3 shouts in a game. And I know most people are saying, yeah, but to get max value out of this, you have to play 3 Word Wall, 3 Greybeard Mentor, and 3 Drain Vitality. So you're designating 9 whole cards to this one combo. True. But when you look at something like Shout Scout, it's dedicating 9 cards to almost auto win against all aggro that's not Halalu. And then you have 41 other cards to do things like Giant Bat Reanimation for 7/7 charges for victory, and all the other kind of super greedy, no one late game's better than Scout type cards. So yes, you dedicate 9 cards to the Shout package, but that's 9 cards to guarantee your win for the most part against an entire archetype that you're not supposed to be favored against. And then on top of that, you're having your other 41 cards which play late game better than any other deck can play late game. Besides maybe Telvanni, but when I say Shout Scout, I'm kind of lumping Telvanni into that as well. But how do you change Word Wall? It's a difficult choice. I've seen people suggest change it to a 0-2. I don't think the health is the problem, however. I could see you potentially removing guard from it so it doesn't protect you as well. I still don't think that solves the issue of these shouts getting crazy. I don't know. Word Wall is a tough one to balance, or rebalance, I guess. I could see Word Wall. This would be a complete change of the card, however, which would be a little bit unfortunate to have to do. But having Word Wall do something like reduce the cost of a shout in your hand, so you have Greybeard Mentor to draw the shout, and then Word Wall to reduce the shout. It doesn't feel great. I don't love that solution. The only problem is I don't see an elegant solution. Talked about this a little bit in my Drain Vitality video, but I want Word Wall to be good so that the other shouts can be played. The only issue is nobody plays any of the shouts besides the Scout color shouts. So it makes the 2 shouts that were probably the best shouts anyway and would probably see play without Word Wall. It makes them even crazier, and it doesn't make the other shouts good enough to see play. So I don't think Word Wall is doing its intended job right now. I think you could play around with cost increase, removing guard, lowering the health, but I still think that it's probably doing too much while also not doing enough. So I think out of all of the cards on this list, if anything kind of needed to be redesigned a little bit, I would say Word Wall is that card. But that's going to be it for now, guys. Let me know what you guys think of these cards down below in the comment section. What nerfs you would suggest, or if there's any cards you think I missed, let me know down below. Maybe we'll talk about them another time. And in addition, I also want to know what cards do you guys think need a buff. We'll be talking about those in a video later this week. But I'm curious to hear some of your guys' suggestions, maybe jog my brain a little bit of some cards I haven't thought about. But yeah, that's going to be it for now, guys. As always, thank you all very much for watching. I'm DragonTamerBlayde, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.